What's up, everyone? It's Deshaun, and we are back with another Yap session. And I know I said this isn't going to be a podcast, or it isn't a podcast, but I figured I'd set it up as one just to, break the ice again. Um, until I come up with a name and, other things fall into line. It is not a podcast. But, anyways, this episode of this Yap session is going to be about Anora. And if you don't know, Anora is a small budget film that just won Best Picture at the Oscars. It came out, it'd be 2024. Yeah. I don't know why. I was going to say 2023. I don't know why. But yeah, it is. I would say go watch the movie if you haven't seen it. I guess spoilers will be in this. By now, you should have seen it, but if you haven't seen it, there will be some spoilers. But anyways, the reason why I'm talking about Anora because I would like to pose a question. What does Anora's Best Picture win mean for you as an independent filmmaker? The short answer is going to be nothing. You are not Sean Baker. You are not Mikey Madison. You did not win Best Picture. And I'm not going to tell you that with great power comes great responsibility, or if you work hard, you too can win an Oscar. I mean, you could, but I don't live in that reality. I'm not the type of person. So I'm not going to tell you that. But what I am going to tell you is that its Best Picture win could be beneficial to you. Now, I am referring to the future, and so this may not immediately affect you if you're not already in like the festival circuit or anything like that. I mean, if you're still shooting weddings, music videos, and that these are your aspirations, I would still consider this to be a beneficial video for you. So I do want to talk about the budget of the film and how that plays into this conversation, but I do just want to give a little, I guess like a review or just, I don't know, my thoughts on the film. I really did enjoy it. I thought it was a really good movie. One thing I found interesting and one thing I loved about the movie is the cinematography and storytelling choices. I don't think the cinematography itself was super complex in any way, but I think the ability to let the scenes breathe, let the actors breathe in the moment of certain scenes just made it more enticing and made it feel like you were actually there. And that's one thing that I really loved about it. When I think in particular to the scene where I can't think of the character's name, but they're like on the phone and they're arguing, and he's driving to the house, and he gets to the house and he asks like why Mikey Madison's character was tied up. And I thought that scene was funny. And like when you hear her screaming and she's like fighting the other guys and she breaks the other guy's nose, like you can feel it kind of feels like you're there. And I think that's a lot because of the choices to have longer shots and a lot of the handheld and allow the camera to move a little bit. I thought it was really interesting because I feel like when watching the film, like there were a lot of times where another director or editor would have made cuts that weren't there. And so I thought, I don't know, I liked it a lot. And so I see why, but won Best Picture. I think it was deserving of Best Picture, to be completely honest. And takeaways that you could apply to, your filmmaking in the future, I think is when you watch the film, it doesn't necessarily really feel like a film that you couldn't shoot on like a Blackmagic camera, honestly, and maybe some lights and some quality actors. I think that's one thing that I'd love to take away from it is that if you write or if you tell stories that are emotionally driven and you allow your actors to do their best work, you don't necessarily need to be super complex with your storytelling or, just the project in general. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, I hate to say it, but I feel like sometimes some movies just lean too much on if it looks good, it'll sell good. And not necessarily the story and the development itself of the characters. And I feel like a lot of times movies that we genuinely deem like great movies that are like, like world, like, I don't know, like cult classics or even just movies we consider to be like phenomenal. A lot of them are a lot of them are pretty cheap. I mean, I feel like there are expensive movies that we really like too. But I feel like in I'm trying to think of like real examples, and my mind is completely blank. But I will, incorporate the next topic into this because I want to talk about budget. And so I full transparency, the last math class I took was calculus. When I my second year of college. So it's been a minute. So the math could be wrong. But I did do the math on the last 10 best picture winners, and I got a median of $22.5 million. The average budget for the last 10. And you know, Oppenheimer's in there with $100 million budget. So it kind of does throw a wrench in it. But if you take out Oppenheimer, it's still about $16 million on average, which is about $10 million off from the budget of Anora. But we're going to stick with the 22 just because that is the actual number. And so the difference between 22 and a half and $6 million, if you do the math, is going to be about $16 million. And looking, if you're on the other side of the screen, you're probably thinking like $60 million, that's really not that big of a gap. But let me put that into perspective. So the lowest three big picture winners in the last 10 years was Anora at $6 million, Nomadland at $5 million, and Moonlight at $4 million. That is $15 million altogether. So the difference of median budget to the budget of Anora is $16 million. So for the low price of $15 million, you could have 3 best picture winners. So that kind of begs the question, why are studios spending hundreds of millions of dollars on existing IPs and making movies that flop? I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm not a studio exec, but what I will say is I think it, and a lot of these points are things that other people have iterated and things that, most people have paid attention to already. I think a lot of studio execs are afraid to take risk. Infamously, I can't remember his name, but Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, replaced him, and he was notorious for saying that people didn't want to see like a character like Black Panther or Captain Marvel on screen. Like they just wanted to see a white male lead. And so I thought that kind of, if he has that sentiment, and although he's out of a job, I think, I mean, unless he got a job somewhere else after Bob Iger went back and replaced him, if he has that sentiment, I'd imagine that he's not the only one, right? And so this isn't like a race thing at the moment. Maybe I'll make another video about that. But what I do want to say is I feel like a lot of times these execs are afraid to make money. That's why they pour money into existing IPs and things that, if it made money once, let's just do it again. I mean, for instance, like we got set photos of a live action Moana movie the same week Moana 2 was coming out. Like that's literally insane. That's crazy, right? Like, why is there a fifth Shrek movie, right? Like, what are we doing? Ultimately, I think, though, I don't know, this is how I look at it, but I feel like obviously movies are a product, and as a CEO or, an executive, ultimately your job is to sell a product, and that product is the movie. So you're not objectively allowed to look at it as art, if that makes sense. Sometimes, I don't know, it depends on a studio, depends on the company. Some companies are just so in shambles so much that they just need money. so they, attach themselves to existing IPs and things like that, or sequels or reboots of movies that have already existed. So the list goes on, right? So there's a lot of reasons for this. But I think the easiest, complaint, or I guess the easiest way to say it is it's because of money, right? And so I don't necessarily think that we should look at like existing IPs or even small budget movies the same way we should these like existing IPs, like a Marvel movie, a DC movie, a Minecraft movie. I don't know why we're getting a Minecraft movie, but I don't have the money, so it is what it is, right? So I think the thing that we have to look at is, how do I say this? So I'm an R&B fan, right? And so as an R&B fan, some of the R&B artists that I'm akin to aren't necessarily like big name artists or even signed to like big name labels, right? And so the sales they do when they're putting out a project aren't necessarily going to be the stature of like a Sabrina Carpenter or a Billie Eilish. Like, those are pop stars. Those are people who, just are world renowned artists. Uh, and so I think it's a little different, and I think that's how we should look at independent films, right? Or or original IP. Like, your original IP product may not make what a Marvel movie makes right off the bat, or a DC movie, or if there's another Harry Potter or something like that. Like, your movie may not make that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your movie is a flop, right? Like, and I mean, same can be said for like a Marvel movie. A Marvel movie's budget could be, $200 million and it make 4 or 5. That's essentially a flop. But I don't necessarily. And there's also another thing of, just because a movie doesn't make money doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. But I digress. Back to the conversation at hand. Unfortunately, these studios get this idea in their head that, oh, they have to make as much money as possible. And I understand. I genuinely understand, because the movie is their product, is their business, is their supply and demand, is their, return on profit and things like that. So I understand why they have this attitude, right? But I don't necessarily understand why it always has to be this. And realistically, it's not, right? Like, there are a ton of movies that come out that are swings by, a studio, and they flop, right? And so they flop, or they're actually good and just people don't see it. And so I think, outside of just marketing, I think sometimes you just gotta give something time, right? And it's unfortunate that these filmmakers, or even these writers, spend time developing the script, and it pretty much boils down to your success in a weekend, right? Or the 2 weekends or whatever, a month, right? And so it's really unfortunate that this is the society that we live in. But I mean, you could say this about a lot of different industries as well. So it is what it is. But at the same time, I think it's important to look at, things that aren't necessarily big name IPs a little differently, and just assess them on a scale, or not a scale, on a curve a little bit. And so one of my favorite movies that have come on the past years is The Creator. That it was a good movie, like, completely honestly, outside of it being shot on FX3. It was a good movie. I liked it. But unfortunately, like, I remember seeing some stuff online about, like, I can't remember. It was compared to another movie that had already come out. And so and it wasn't a movie I seen, and I watched it, and I was like, these movies aren't similar at all. But it was like people repeating it, like, this is basically just da da da, and I can't think of the movie. I'm really frustrated that I can't think of the name of the movie. But I watched it, and I was like, these aren't similar at all. Like, but anyways, nonetheless, there's more I want to say, but this video is already going to be long. The curve of low budget, independent, original IP films has to be looked at, has to be assessed. And I think if you do the due diligence of taking the time to develop a good movie, I feel like the budget shouldn't matter. If that makes sense. Like, if we're taking the money that we used to make this film, and we're taking the time to develop a good story, taking the time to hire the right person to make this film, taking the time to market it correctly, to strategically understand and place this movie in different parts of the world, and with different app streams of people online and things like that. If we do what we're really supposed to be doing, regardless of how much money we spend on this film, we could make it back, right? And so that's the thing that gets to me. It's like, if you gave me $200 million in 4 years, or 3 years or maybe even 2 years, I think I could do something, right? Like I think I don't know everything about making a movie or at the highest level, but with $200 million, I think I could figure it out. With $100 million, I think I could figure it out. With 80, with 50, with 20, I think I could figure it out. And so that's the thing that kind of gets to me and bothers me, because it's like, with all the money in the world, these movies should be better, right? Like, no, like I don't know. And so obviously this is probably a conversation I should have with someone else and not just myself and the camera. But at the same time, I'm kind of, bringing these topics up to, have discussions in the future. But at the same time, I just want to reiterate that Anora is a good movie, and there's a lot that you can take from it. And also, the success, or this Best Picture win and the other awards it has, I think should be the ushering in of other original stories and other original screenplays, in attacking movies not from the budget, but from the ground up in its production, and not just throwing money at things, right? And so that's really all I have to say. And I appreciate you guys watching. I hope that if you haven't seen Anora yet, to go check it out. It's really good. A little graphic at times, so I'm sorry in advance if you haven't seen it. I did not know what the movie was about when I watched it. I didn't watch a trailer or anything. I just went in blind. So it got pretty real pretty quick. But in all seriousness, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you again soon. I hope you get home safe. I hope you have a good night, and I hope all your dreams come true. Peace.